Hello and welcome into another episode of Jacket Sports Weekly. Riley Holsinger joined alongside by the doctor, Caleb Yager, right here. And new renovations to the baseball field happened back in the fall, but the school is getting great use out of it because there are 7 combined home games this week between the baseball and the softball teams on campus, Caleb.
And both teams are making their debuts on that field this week, including baseball, and they're taking on Penn State Barron at 3 o'clock on Wednesday. But we're going to kind of go back a little bit and talk about their game against Wilson. Actually, 2 games in a doubleheader. They lost the first game 5-4 and the second game 14-0. Let's talk about the first game, a lot closer than the second one. There was only one error for the Yellow Jackets. Aiden Williams, the freshman, got the start on the bump for the Yellow Jackets. A very versatile player. He had 5.1 innings pitched, allowed 7 hits, 5 earned runs, and had 5 strikeouts as well. But one of the biggest things from that game, 10 runners left on base, and that's something that they're definitely probably kicking themselves for because it was just a one-run game. He had a lot of opportunities to convert, but were not able to. And the second one, it was a tale of 2 games, to say the least. 14-0. Alec Englemore on the mound for the Yellow Jackets, 1 inning pitched. He allowed 3 hits and 2 earned runs. Corey Fisher also pitched as well. The Yellow Jackets combined for 6 hits, but they couldn't score any, and they also left 7 batters on base as well.
Yeah, so 17 runners left on base combined in both those games right there. Not a great formula if you want to go out there and win a game. Aiden Williams and Alec Englemore, they definitely have a lot of potential, those 2 freshmen from Shaler High School. So definitely a lot of promise. Their better days are definitely ahead for those 2 right there. But the baseball team, like you mentioned, tale of 2 games. Had a lead in that first game, and then it evaporated towards the end of the game, and kind of the Yellow Jackets just hung their head for that second game, which led to that 14-0 loss. Mentioned it, the baseball team taking on Penn State Barron on Wednesday, play a doubleheader at Allegheny, Najon Kirkman's former school, on Saturday, and then play 2 times on Sunday at La Roche. So definitely a very busy week for the baseball team here, playing its first games, at least home, on Wednesday, and then playing away for the weekend here. So moving over to the other side of the diamond, the softball team, home opener on Tuesday, Caleb.
Yeah, they haven't. It's been a while since they played. The last time they played was in South Carolina, Myrtle Beach. They went 6-3, almost 7-3. Like we mentioned, they had the lead in the first game, 10-5 in the third inning, but unfortunately it got rained out. But the biggest headline for this softball team has been Sydney Wilson. I mean, she's just been outstanding, and that's an understatement. She went 2-1 at the Fast Pitch Invitational in Myrtle Beach. She struck out 37 hitters in 26 innings, 0.00 ERA. I think 0.00 ERA is pretty good, Riley.
Yeah, that's what I would like to think as well, Caleb. Sydney Wilson, the top pitcher statistically, at least right now in the President's Athletic Conference. A very young season, but a very promising start to her career as well. Both the baseball and the softball teams have a lot of young talent, and the softball team also not just getting it done with the pitching staff either, but also hitting. 11 players hitting over 300 so far for the softball team. Like I said, a young season, but it is promising so far with that 6-3 record. Some of those players that have been hitting really well is Sydney Wilson, 7 for 15 so far. Ella Brookman, another 2-way player that's been playing pretty well for the Yellow Jackets, 11 for 28 so far this season. And Lauren Lober also having a pretty good start to her season as well, 9 and 15. The Yellow Jackets have a pretty busy week as well, Caleb.
Oh yeah, and like you mentioned, Brookman has just been a consistent player for them, and she was the ace for the softball team last year, but she's getting it done in the batter's box. 393, 11 of 28 from the batter's box as well, and it's interesting because Sydney Wilson's kind of taking over that ace starting position, which can leave Brookman to take it to the fielding and do well in the batter's box.
Yeah, and pitching was kind of an issue for the softball team, at least the past 4 years that I've been here at Waynesburg University. So it's definitely good that they have multiple options that are going to be really good pitchers. The thing about softball that is the biggest difference from baseball is you don't have to have so many arms when it comes to softball. You can get away with having 2 really solid pitchers and have them pitch pretty much every single game of the season for you, whereas baseball, it's a lot different of a throwing motion. Really affects the shoulders, the elbows throughout the course of the season. So definitely good that the softball team has really reliable pitching this season. And talking about another sport that's been returning from its break, the outdoor track and field team getting set for its first meet this weekend at the Stan Romanowski Open. Women's team coming off of a solid indoor season. The men's team not so much, but some of those faces to keep an eye on and some of those names to keep an eye on are Michaela Rose, Rebecca Doles, Kat Henderson, and Aubrey Wingert. 4 of the competitors that had a really good season in the indoor for the outdoor track and field teams. And then some of the guys to keep an eye on too are going to be Kai Herbert, Isaiah Matthews, and Josh Derricott. And we have breaking news that just happened today, Caleb. The Waynesburg wrestling team finally found a replacement for legendary head coach Ron Headley.
And can we get a drum roll, please? It is Aaron McKinney coming in and taking over the head coaching position for the Waynesburg University wrestling team. An interesting hire, to say the least. And we'll see what the future holds for the Yellow Jackets. Ron Headley's tenure is over, but it's a bright future for this wrestling team for sure.
Yeah, taking a look at McKinney's resume real quick. Wrestled at the Division I level at Lock Haven. Also coached Western Allegheny, a school that's a little familiar to one of the wrestlers on the team. Rocky McGeary, mentioned it, a little bit of an interesting hire. Don't know really too much about him. Don't really know much about the interviewing process, but I know some of the guys were a little frustrated that assistant head coach Gennaro Bonaventura didn't get the position. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that relationship bonds throughout the season between McKinney and the wrestling team. But that'll do it for our first segment right here on Jacket Sports Weekly. And when we come back, Austin Bechtold will come here and break down the baseball team. Let's go with that.
We did it.
Over 8 minutes.
Let's go.
You gave us like short answers we would not have known.
Well, the spring sports season is in full swing, and we're going to talk a little baseball now here on Jacket Sports Weekly. And here to talk about it is our baseball analyst, Austin Bechtold. Thank you very much for joining us, Austin. And now, the baseball team took on Wilson College on Friday in a doubleheader. But to be honest with you, it was a tale of 2 games, to say the least.
Yeah, it definitely was. Good to be with you guys. 5-4 in that first game, being a loss, and then 14-0, a complete and utter blowout for the Waynesburg University baseball team. In that first game, Waynesburg really had a shot at it. Now, Wilson did score 1 run in the 4th in the 5th inning, and Waynesburg responded and scored 4 runs in the top of the 6th. That was quickly answered, though. Wilson responded with 3 runs of their own in the bottom half, and that was the difference in that game. And really, from the start in the second game, it was a completely different story from the get-go, as Wilson scored 3 runs in the first inning, including a pass ball, scoring the first run of 14.
Yeah, and how important is it for a team to be able to kind of shake off those poor performances, kind of like late in game 1, to shake that off into game 2 and kind of just forget about it because you have a second game to play out there?
Yeah, I think it's very important, especially when the runs were scored in the first game as well, being in the 6th inning where you had the lead and you were riding high on a bunch of emotions, knowing that you could win this game after struggling a little bit in Florida, and then giving it right back in the bottom half of the inning is tough. So whenever you go into that next game, got to have a different mindset to it, and giving up 3 runs right away, and especially with some of those errors, 3 total errors in the game, and having that pass ball was massive to be able to get that rally going.
And now for the first game, Austin, that one statistic is really sticking out to me, and that's 10 runners left on base. I mean, and this is not the first time that we've seen it this year from them.
No, it was also 7 runners left on base in the 14-0 game. So just continuously seeing just not being able to take advantage whenever you're able to get those guys in the scoring position. And really, I think just try to score any way possible. Sac flies, sacrifice bunts, anything to move a runner over. And get another opportunity, especially when you're getting a close of a game that is 5-4, and you're really just scoring runs in spurts, if you will, only having those 4 runs in the 6th inning and no other runs throughout the remainder of the game. It is important to take care of business, obviously, and that's just something that we haven't seen in this early going that really needs to be improved on, as the 2-6 record right now is just not good enough.
Yeah, and I feel like a little bit of that theme of the season so far is a little bit more of like that Jekyll and Hyde mindset, where you have the team where they'll come out, they'll put together some pretty good games, like in game number 1 right there, and then the Hyde part comes out when the team loses 14-0 in game 2. What do you think needs to change moving forward for this baseball team to kind of get rid of this slow start and start winning some games?
Well, I think some of the more veteran players on this team have to step up a little bit more, but 2 players that are really standing out to me, Aiden Williams and Alec Engelmore, both freshmen. Williams has been one of the key starters earlier on that we've seen this year. He pitched 5 1/3 and gave up 7 hits in those 5 runs in that first game. And Engelmore also started in the 14-0 game, gave up those 3 runs before Corey Fisher came in, and then he gave up 4 runs before the game completely became out of hand. So we know Corey Fisher has the talent to be able to get it done for this team, but being able to see more consistent contributions from a lot of these different players, especially when you're depending on freshmen so far to be able to step up, which is a good freshman class, and eventually they're going to blossom into a lot more than what we're seeing right now. Being able to get some more of Perry Cunningham's guys to be able to step up to the plate.
And speaking of Cunningham, I talked to him after the game on Friday, and he said that there are still a lot of positives, even though the record and the statistics may not show, the box score may not show, there were still a lot of positives that he took away from this game and from the season in general. So, I mean, are there any positives in your opinion, Austin?
I think there have, and I think the freshmen are a part of that, being able to build this program in Cunningham's first year as the head coach of this baseball team. I'm also looking ahead to Penn State Barron on Wednesday, which, Riley, big weather guys here, 68 degrees and sunny. Now you have that great weather in Florida, came back up to the Pittsburgh area, Waynesburg area, where not has been as friendly as Florida has been, but you're going to get a good game at home now. For the Yellow Jackets, this is a Penn State Barron team that's lost 3 games in a row, and Waynesburg on a losing streak of its own, trying to snap that, and I think that the odds are going to be in Waynesburg's favor in this one.
And great weather on Wednesday, like you mentioned right there, but it's not going to stay too long. We're all too familiar with the weather in this area, so there are definitely going to be those games where it's going to be that springtime weather where you don't know what you're going to get on a daily and a game-by-game basis here. So what should the team kind of, I guess, have to worry about when dealing with poor conditions out there? Because you go from Florida where it's 70, 80 most of the week. Wednesday, it should be warm around that 70 temperature that you mentioned right there. But there are going to be those days where it's bad too.
Yeah, I think some of it is kind of how far the ball might fly and the conditions of your hands on the bat. And really, if it's a lot colder out and the bat stinging whenever you make contact on the ball might be a little bit more difficult. And we've seen in some MLB games in April, sometimes it's snowing. The madness is not only just college basketball, it's the weather, and it affects baseball as well.
All right, thank you very much, Austin Bechtold. When we come back, we'll be talking softball right here on Jacket Sports Weekly.
Returning here on Jacket Sports Weekly to talk about the Waynesburg University softball team, and also returning to join us to talk about the softball team is softball analyst and extraordinaire, Mr. Jesse Kane. Jesse, thank you so much for joining Caleb and I up here today. So, softball team coming back after a week off after that long trip to Myrtle Beach. Do you think it's a positive for the team to kind of have a little bit of a week off to rest and relax a little bit?
Usually I would say it's positive. There's definitely a lot of positive elements to this, but looking at the team, I mean, they came off Myrtle Beach hot, 6-3. They were doing really great, one of the greatest starts we've seen from Waynesburg softball in the past decade. So I really liked how they performed in Myrtle Beach. I'm sure their coach Schmick liked that as well. And, this is only his third season. So a lot of these players, actually all of these players, because there's no seniors on the roster, he recruited, he wanted them to show up and come here. So he's really known this roster, and just with the momentum they had from Myrtle Beach, I'm not saying that this week off was negative to them at all. Only time will tell, but I do think that this week could play effect into this upcoming week, the week off after Myrtle Beach. So
now, the one player that we just have to talk about is freshman Sydney Wilson. I mean, just the numbers. She went 2-1 at Myrtle Beach, but she struck out 37 hitters in 26 innings, 0.00 ERA. I mean, that's all right. I mean, no, it's fantastic. I mean, just give your thoughts about her.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the way she played. How can you not, especially if you're a coach or a fan with that performance? And she's even hitting the ball really well. She's got a 467 average, She's been at bat 15 times and 7 hits. She's got 4 RBIs. She's just an all-around great player. Pitching on its own, I mean, that ERA is fantastic. Striking out that many players, 91 strikeouts, 91 at-bats and 37 strikeouts is just fantastic. So I'm really excited to see what she can do all season long. And, I mean, right now it's too good to be true, but time will tell.
Yeah, the softball team, really impressive so far. And you mentioned about how she does it pitching and then also at the plate as well. Another player that does that, Ella Brookman, 11 for 28 so far this season. Just an amazing pitcher. But how impressive has the Jackets been at the plate? 11 players over 300. That's really good for the start of the season.
Yeah, there's so many players hitting really well. And, I mean, I guess that shows because they went 6-3 for this tournament. But, I mean, we see a lot of players really jumping up here. We have Lauren Lober, who's right now at 600. She was hitting 268 last year. And then Sydney Wilson also, I mean, the freshman, she's 467. And then we also got some of these other players from last year that they've just jumped their hitting average significantly. One person that has actually dropped is Bryn Hunter, and she was a star hitter for them last year. She was the second best with the batting average, and she actually dropped a little bit. But, I mean, it was only 9 games. So there's so much more to improve on, and we'll just have to see how consistent these Jackets can be.
Consistency is going to be a big question because last season they dropped 15 of their last 16 games. What do you do to avoid that and just be consistent all throughout the season?
So we have a young roster here, Waynesburg softball. I mean, they've only got 3 juniors and no seniors at all. So the rest are underclassmen. They did have a lot of experience last year, but I think that the key to them, they've only got 3 pitchers right now. The key is to remain healthy. I mean, it's just so important with a sport that has so many games is just to remain healthy, stay consistent. We've seen that they can win these games, and especially, I mean, they went 1-1 against Grove City, so especially in conference, it's just going to be an exciting season for softball coming up, and I'm excited for this week.
Well, hopefully that the Waynesburg softball team doesn't have a good week, but has a great week. Thank you, Jesse, for all of your softball expertise. And coming back on Jacket Sports Weekly, we'll have Carter Newcome to preview the golf team.
Have you ever been to the Everly Library? If not, you should, because it's great. They have books of all different genres: history, biography, fiction. Try The Evolution of Life, Life of Pi, or Jurassic Park. So what if books aren't your thing? Try movies like Frozen, or TV shows like Lost. Books and DVDs aren't the only thing though. Take a trip to the 2nd floor. Welcome to the Writing Center. These tutors will tell you everything you need to know about writing a paper, and they'll help revise your essays. Now let's head back down. Behold, the Knox Learning Center. Need to print something out 5 minutes before your next class because you procrastinated? No problem. You can also print off pictures of dogs. Because, well, you can. So grab your homework, laptop, and textbook, and study diligently. Bring your lunch too. Actually, you can't. That's illegal. Now you know the Everly Library. Stop by anytime. Seriously, it's open all week.
Welcome back to Jacket Sports Weekly on WCTV. Now, we have a very special guest to talk about the men's golf team, and that is Carter Newcome, football player in the fall. golf player in the spring. Thanks for joining us today on Jacket Sports Weekly. And the golf team over spring break went to North Carolina just to get things going. You guys didn't necessarily compete, but just talk about the experience that you guys had down there.
Oh, it was very unique. I've never gone on a golf trip personally. I just started playing golf as a senior in high school. So to go down and play in some of the nicest courses in North Carolina was a blast for me personally, and I'm sure most of the guys agree with that. We played 4 courses in 4 days, and then on the last day we came back up. We stopped at a course that was about an hour and a half north where we were staying in Pinehurst, North Carolina. So we came right up after that one, and it was a good time. I think we left Saturday in the evening, and we came back Wednesday in the afternoon.
So Carter, what would you have to say was your favorite part of the trip?
I think my favorite part was definitely playing Tobacco Road. That's my favorite course that I've ever played, like my most favorite course I've ever played. It's just rolling hills. It's a newer course, so it was built in 1998. So it's very man-made, not very like an old school golf course. So that puts you in a lot of places where you don't necessarily want to be if you hit a bad shot. I was talking to some friends about it, and it's in golf sometimes you hit a bad shot, just oh no. At Tobacco Road, it was oh no, no, no. And the course really beat me up. I swallowed one of my worst scores ever there, but I had such a good time playing it at that course. It was enjoyable, and I bought merchandise from there.
Now, of course, we have to ask about the weather. How much did that play a factor with you guys playing down there?
So the first 2 days actually were not great. The first day wasn't awful though. I mean, it was colder, but it was still nice outside. I mean, it was sunny, but it was in the mid 40s. I mean, it was doable, but not desirable, especially when you're going to North Carolina. The second day was miserable, to put it frankly to you. It was 40 degrees. It was raining the whole day. Not really great weather for golf, but we already had gone and paid, so we were going to play golf anyways. So I mean, we made what we could out of it. And then on Friday, Monday, Tuesday, it was beautiful out. It was sunny. I think it got to the lower 60s, but we just missed it by just a week. It was supposed to be, I think, 70 like next week after we were there.
So this is your first season on the golf team here at Waynesburg University. So meeting new guys at least, or new teammates in your case, since you are a part of the football team as well. So kind of like a newer family for you here and a newer squad that you're a part of. So what was that trip kind of like, and I guess building bonds with those guys and getting to know them better?
So I mean, I know a couple of the guys prior to joining the team, but didn't really speak much outside of that. I played. I was supposed to play my sophomore year last year in the fall, but the PAC canceled that. So every sport played in the spring. So I got to know the guys a little bit in the fall because I practiced with the team back then. But when I went to the spring, obviously football and golf went at the same time, so I played football instead of golf. But I got to know a couple of the guys, a lot better than I did prior to heading to North Carolina. And now that I see them, we can actually talk about something other than, hey, what's up? Actually, there's now a knowledge of someone, and it's good, especially to go out and play golf with some guys. Is definitely, it adds to the aura of playing golf with the team.
Now, getting to know some of the guys and looking at the spring season coming up, who are some of the top guys that are going to be really producing great stuff for the Yellow Jackets?
So we're a pretty veteran team right now. We have, I believe, 3 seniors and a grad transfer. Our graduates did not a transfer. We have Luke Deal's one of the best. He's been our number 1 for, I think, 2 or 3 years now. He had a hole-in-one on a par 4 at the PAC Championships in the fall. Jonathan Faber, someone I play with a lot. He's also a senior. And we have some guys I think that can shoot some very good scores, especially once we get going. I mean, it's tough right now because it's preseason and the weather's spotty. The course is very wet and it's very inconsistent with, how you want to play it. But there's definitely some guys that can step up as well. I know I got to play with Briston Bennett and Jake Scheit the other day, 2 former Jake Scheit still a basketball player here at Waynesburg, Briston former basketball player, and they're also really fun to play with, and they could definitely improve their scores and get into the lineup too.
So this is your first year on the Waynesburg golf team here. What are your personal expectations for yourself over the course of the season and kind of get used to playing collegiate golf?
I mean, I've never competed in a college golf match or just a golf match in general. I never played in high school because I was also during the fall with football. So for me, I just want to be able to crack the lineup. I think I can shoot some scores that will put me in that spot. And I think ultimately I just want to get better at the game. I'm still new to it. I've only been playing it for about 3 years now. So just to continuously get better and see improvement in my game, because golf's a tough sport to get better at. It's very time consuming and you got to put in a lot of work. it's tough mentally on you because you could be hitting the ball well one day and the next day it's like you never swung a golf club before. So I think personally some expectations for myself. I just want to be able to compete and hopefully represent our team in the matches.
Now, March 26th, you guys take on Carlo in a dual match, a kind of a tradition for Waynesburg golf, and has had some pretty good success over the years against Carlo. What's your guys' approach heading into that matchup?
Oh, you just got to be ready. It's still March, so this is March, so it's gonna be tough to grasp what the weather is going to be like. So playing in all sorts of conditions. I played last week prior to come on Sunday before we came back to school after spring break. I played in 35-mile-an-hour winds. Because you never know when the weather will be like that, or if it's going to be rainy. Like the one day we played in North Carolina, it was as miserable as it was for us to play in. We never know if you're going to get a match in that kind of weather, so you need to be prepared. That's one thing for sure. Historically, we've done pretty well against them, though. Hopefully, we can continue that heading into this spring season as well. But just got to stay prepared and be ready for all kinds of elements.
Yeah, and those conditions, they have to be very tough to play in, right?
Oh, it's very tough. I mean, playing in the wind is one thing. I can deal with playing in the rain because generally in the rain it's more just mentally, all right, I'm kind of cold, it's wet, and like you got to worry about the club slipping out of your hand and whatnot. But in the wind, it's tricky because I mean they were playing in the high winds at the PGA Tour this weekend, and there's guys like Justin Thomas who said that like I was hitting a 5-iron into a 140-yard shot, and then when I was heading the other way, I was hitting at 250. So it's kind of tough to grasp because it's all out of your hands once the ball gets into the air.
Now, what are some other things that you want to kind of improve upon as the season goes on? I mean, we talked about your first golf season.
Really just my mental game. I think mentally that's the trickiest part of golf is being able to whenever you hit a bad shot to overcome it and keep moving on. And I think that's one thing I've learned about playing golf that really is trying to translate in my life as well is whenever, don't let one mistake, overbear and ruin the rest of your day or ruin the rest of your round. Just keep pushing through it, and when you hit a bad shot, take a deep breath and just try to rebound and recover the best you can.
Yeah, so there are a lot of great golfers right now. You have Justin Thomas, you have guys like Tiger Woods. Do you kind of model your game after any sort of golfer? It could even be other guys like J.R. Smith or maybe even Shooter McGavin or Happy Gilmore.
I'm a little bit of everything. Actually, I think if there was it's not a golfer, but if there's someone my game kind of resembles is Wild Thing from Major League because I don't have any idea where the ball's going sometimes. It's scary because I'm going to hit it far, but I have no idea where it's going to go.
So you're still playing football here at Waynesburg University. How tough do you think that's going to be? And you're already kind of dealing with trying to balance football and golf. How tough is that going to be for you, Carter?
It's tricky because I have to really manage my time. But as a comm student here in the department, I kind of already have to do that because we do a lot of extracurriculars here. But in high school, I played 3 sports throughout the year for most of my high school career as well. So to manage that, it's mainly just making sure my body's right. Making sure I'm eating and drinking. I think that's some of the biggest thing is staying, having energy in my body because there was on Friday played a couple holes in the morning because I had to get a 9-hole round in. I had to play a couple holes in the morning because the course didn't open until 11, and I had practice at 2:30 for football, and then after that I went right back into my golf clothes and finished my 9-hole round. So definitely capable of doing it. I'm always running from one place to the other, so it's definitely something I'm capable of. It's going to be tricky as matches begin and so does as spring ball kicks up.
Thank you very much, Carter Newcome, for joining us on Jacket Sports Weekly. A little bit of a preview for the golf season and your personal outlook on the golf season as well. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today on Jacket Sports Weekly, but tune in every Monday right here on Jacket Sports Weekly.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.